Hello and welcome back to another half term. We hope you've had a great break and hopefully you've had a chance to enjoy some of the beautiful weather that we've had this half term. So back to home learning, a couple of changes including using our Power Maths books now, but mainly carrying on with all of the fantastic things that we've been working on, that we've been practicing so far up to this point. I'm going to start us off with some DT and we're going to pick up where we left off with some origami today, so stick around for that, but otherwise have a fantastic week. So let's talk about DT then. So we're going to start where we left off with some origami, because I was so impressed with everyone's origami fish before half term. They were absolutely fantastic. Now we're starting a new book. We're starting a squash and a squeeze. And today we're going to be making an origami hen, because that's the first animal that the little old lady brings into her house in the story. Now, just before we get going, I just want to say, if you have been saving up toilet roll tubes over half term, then that's brilliant, because we are going to be using those, but I thought for our first week we'd just do some origami. If you haven't, then over this next week I'd encourage you again, save up some toilet roll tubes. I've got some ideas for how we can use them to build up some of the characters and maybe some of the things in the story, and with our next story as well. So plenty more toilet roll crafts to come, but let's get started with our origami for today. So things you're going to need are a piece of paper, a pencil, and you're going to need some scissors to make your square at the start. So first thing we need to do is start off with a square piece of paper, and you'll remember from before that one of the easiest ways to do that is just to fold your piece of paper, if it's a normal A4 piece of paper, over, make that nice triangle shape, and then you want to get rid of this oblong at the end. So you can do that by folding over, just like that, and then you want to chop this bit off. Okay, so that's your first step, so you might want to pause there and have a go at that. So there we go, there's our square that we're going to be working with. Now we've already done actually one of the first folds that we need to do, and that's folding the square in half from corner to corner, like that. So again, don't worry about being really accurate, but the more accurate you can be, the easier it is later. So same thing again, you need to do the other corner to the corner like that. So line it up, remember, and then with the back of your hand, smooth out the fold. Okay, so look, you can see that I've not been completely accurate there, but that's okay. We don't need to worry too much about that. So you should have this nice cross shape in the middle now. And what you're going to want to do then is we're going to actually turn this back into, well, we're going to keep it as a square, but we're going to make it into a smaller square. So have a watch how we do that. So you need to take your corners and you need to fold them into the middle. So you should see that there's a spot right in the middle where all of your folds meet so far. Take your corners and fold them into that spot. There we are, so we've got another square, or as close as possible to a square, with all of those corners pressed right into the middle. Now we're going to basically do the same thing again. So in that middle spot, we're going to take each of the corners and fold it into the middle to create an even smaller square. So same again. And you can see now that those tiny little bits that weren't as accurate don't really matter at this point, because I've got some nice sharp corners and an even smaller square. Right, let's move on to the next step then. So next step is to take your square, to unfold the one on the right and the one on the left. And when you've done that, so you should have a shape that looks like that, turn your piece of paper over. And what we're trying to do now is we're trying to fold down this middle line. So if it's helpful for you, and again, you can use your pencil at any point if you just want to make it more clear where your fold is going. And you could do this with a ruler, but since we're just doing it roughly to help us, we don't really need it. We're going from that point all the way down the middle to that point over there. Okay, so let's make that fold now. You'll find that, like with our fish, most of these folds come quite easily because we've already folded the piece of paper in along those lines. So there we go. And you should finish up with a shape like that with those flaps on either side. This next step is probably one of the more tricky steps, and this last bit where we turn this into a hen is slightly more tricky than what's come before. You need to take your piece of paper and open it up down that middle fold. So you can see I've drawn some lines on my piece of paper. I've drawn a dot in the center going out to this corner here, and from that dot as well, lines coming to these corners. And this is helpful because it just shows you which lines you're folding along. Now, this is quite difficult because the paper doesn't really want to do this fold. So you might have to go quite slow for this one, but watch what we're aiming for. So we're going to take this corner, and we're going to start pulling it in towards the middle. And what we want to do is we want to try and fold the paper along that middle line. And at the same time, you can do this by pressing down on these two lines so that as you begin to fold, you begin to get this shape. Okay, and you can see that, look, that line has come forward and we've squashed it in like that. So that's the next step. That might take a little bit of time and you might have to work quite gently with the paper to help those folds start to form. And you're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So you might want to open it up again, draw your line here and here. So remember, these two we're almost going to be pressing down and trying to form that middle fold. It's helpful if you sort of squeeze that fold first, and then as you squash the whole thing back together, you can see that those folds there start to form. So you should end up with something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, with those two bits in there and that shape overall. And you might just want to press everything down when you're happy that you've got those folds. So once you've got to this bit, we've got another step again where it's a bit tricky because we haven't got the folds already made for us. So you're going to have to go slow with this and just be gentle with your paper. What we're trying to do is get this corner here to come down and stick out of this side here. Okay, and that's going to create a beak. So watch how we do that. You're going to grab this corner and push it in between those two sides and pull it all the way down until it's sticking out of this side. So it's easy to think that you're trying to do that, but actually you need to pull it all the way down until you get down here. Now, don't pull it so far that it's down right near this corner, and you don't want this flat edge here. What you want to get is about maybe a third of the way down, and you can see that if you then spin that round, you get a nice flat top here and the beak sticking out there. Okay, then squash that down just like that. Okay, so just as a reminder, we're going from that down through the middle to that. Okay, and you can see there that we've got our fantastic hen shape. So that's it for the folding in this origami DT project. But obviously at the moment it doesn't look too much like a hen. So there's some things you can do to make this look more like a hen in terms of the colours and in terms of the design. Now I'd encourage you to have a little look online, Google some different types of hens, and I've got some on the screen now, because you'll see that there's actually lots of different colours that hens can be. But the one in the story is a nice white hen with this lovely red kind of face and yellow beak. So if you've got some felt tip pens, you can have a go at making that. So first thing you're going to want to do is make the eyes. So you can do this with pencil or black pen. So on this little bit up here or on here, get yourself a nice clear black eye. Then you've got a chance to do some red. What I've done is, because there's that spiky red bit on top, I've coloured some of this bit in red. Now, what you can do is colour some of it in and then cut it out. Or you could stick your own red onto the top there. So I'm just going to make that a bit more neat. So you can see I've made my red up here, and then I'm going to take those scissors that I had earlier, and remember all the things we've talked about being safe with scissors, so get an adult to help you if you need. And then I'm going to cut out those white bits. I've got a nice little top to my hen as well. And what you can do as well is make the little sticky out bit of red here, so you might want to just colour in a little bit here, or even you could add your own, just a bit of red down there, or you could add a little bit in there to make that bit of the hen as well. But yes, do look online and also be creative with it. You don't have to make it look like a real hen. You can add some fantastic designs as well, and maybe you can draw some feathers and things. Hopefully you enjoyed that origami build. We'll leave it there. That's it then. I hope you have a fantastic week this week. I'll be back on Monday next week for some more DT. But until then, enjoy your week. I'll see you soon.